You can see that we are rapidly approaching Great Lent, and so the readings and the hymns that you're hearing are going to begin that Lenten tone. And the idea being that there are things for us to consider as we approach every Lenten season. And so the church puts certain readings for us to begin that process of thinking. So last week, we had then the Canaanite woman who cries out for her daughter. And we have Jesus saying, I have only come for the house of Israel. And it is not fair now to give that blessing, the crumbs from the table, to those who are now, and then symbolically he says dogs, but those who are not within the house of Israel. But then her prayer is, have mercy on me, because even the dogs eat the crumbs from the master's table. Beginning now for us to see that the light of Christianity, the saving grace of God, knows no bounds. It is no longer bound to the old covenant. It is now opened up to the entire world. So we have that message in last week's gospel, meaning for those of us who sometimes despair and say, am I within the grace of God? And I've heard this many, many times. How can God forgive me? How can he be gracious? I've done this, I've done that. And the answer is that yes, even the dogs, meaning those not only who have sinned and put them outside of God's grace, or they're thinking of God's grace, but even those who are not from what was the original covenant, the people of the original covenant, it is for all of us. So this is the gospel that gives us that hope, that all of us can be included regardless of the sins, as long as we have turned our lives to Christ. Because we know that we will continue to sin. It is not like you go to confession and then you never sin again, or you get baptized and you never sin again. This is not the way that it works, obviously. We all continue to sin. So it's not necessarily now that which is going to put us what is going to put us into hell is the thought of the desperation that I cannot be saved. I am so bad that I cannot be saved, that now there is no hope and I turn away from God. But this is the message that we get, is that no, there is hope. And then we have the reading of today, which reinforces that point. Because now Jesus is going to take it even further, and he's going to say, those who think they are going to heaven, lifting their eyes and saying and comparing themselves, those now will be the least in the kingdom of heaven. And now, at the time, the tax collector, who was viewed as the dog, is now the one who says, everyone who humbles himself will be exalted. So Jesus is taking the theme from the last epistle reading and now exalting that and bringing that even further and saying that if you think you're one of those that is not the dog and is of the original covenant, I have news for you. You are not. The more that you exalt yourself, the more that you will be humbled. Now, I know personally, I've seen that many, many times in my life personally, because when you combine being an engineer with being a pilot, with then being in the military, then typically your ego does not fit through the door. Throughout my life, I have many, many times thought that I was much, much better than those people around me, much more educated, got a better job, my college degree. So all of those things made me into the Pharisee. I have seen that in my life, that this is how I think. And then I can look at others and say, yeah, but look at the car that he's driving. And I've been in his house, and I don't know what that was that he had there. And I'm certainly not I don't drink that much like these other people do. So I was that Pharisee. And what Jesus is saying to me here is saying, no, you will be humbled. And not just in the next life. Trust me, I was humbled in this life many, many times. And so that humility will come to you in this life. There are people that will ensure that as you climb up that ladder, they will take you down a few notches. So when we talk about being humbled, we're not just talking about the next life, we're talking about in this life too. So Great Lent is here to remind us to look and see who we are. And if we start to become like that Pharisee, then to remember now the tax collector and now the woman who asked Christ and said, hey, even I can get some crumbs. That everybody has the potential to be saved, but they have to willingly, out of their own free will, be willing to do this. So I just wanted to tie those two gospel readings together because I think that they are very, very important.